You want the moon? Just say the word and I'll throw a lasso around it and pull it down.
Look at the stars. The great kings of the past look down on us from those stars. So whenever you feel alone, just remember that those kings will always be there to guide you.
I don't think it is very useful to speculate on what God might or might not be able to do. Rather, we should examine what he actually does with the universe we live in.
We are all explorers, driven to know what's over the horizon. The most profound discoveries are not necessarily beyond that next star. They're within us, woven into the threads that bind us.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Great. Thank you so much for being with me. I'm really excited about bringing on other astrologers on the full moon. I feel like full moons are a time where we can celebrate. It's a very abundant time. So I love talking with other people who are just as passionate about astrology as I am.
Yeah, well, I love the moon, so I am so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Okay, first things first, Celeste. I have to know, what is your sign?
So I am a Taurus sun, an Aries moon, and a Cancer rising.
Oh, okay. I had a feeling you were a Taurus. I don't know if I've heard you say that before, or if I just got the vibe, but that makes total sense, actually. Your Cancer rising is very nurturing and sweet. That's how you come off on social media.
Yeah.
I love it.
That was a
Okay.
big learning for me, learning about my rising sign.
Yes, I that's why I love astrology. I'm a Virgo with a Virgo rising, so I've always just been like, "Oh yeah, I'm a Virgo." Like it just 100% makes sense. And then once I realized I was also a Virgo rising, I'm like, "Okay, yeah. I'm like full Virgo." It rules my whole chart.
And what is your moon sign?
I have a Scorpio moon. So
Oh.
there's some depth down there once you get past the exterior that might look a little bit more perfect than it actually is. All right, so today we're going to talk all about the Gemini full moon happening this Saturday, the energy leading up to it, what it means for your sign, and we're also going to talk about some other major transits surrounding this full moon. We have Venus going retrograde on Sunday, Chiron going direct right around the time of the full moon as well, and this square between Saturn and Uranus really starting to heat up over the next week or so. So we'll talk about it all, give everybody a snapshot of the energy as they head into their weekend so they can be fully prepared. And Celeste, I love that you look at transits in a way where you can kind of see aspects that a lot of other astrologers aren't talking about. So if anything comes up and you have this ping of inspiration or some great insight you want to share, just hop right in.
Okay.
Awesome. Okay, so let's just first talk about what's going on today on Friday, because it's not a whole lot, but the moon's already in Gemini, so we're starting to feel that Gemini moon energy. And so, the moon is almost full. I've been going on evening walks and looking up at the moon, and I feel way more connected to it when I know it's almost a full moon. I'm talking about it every day, but there's something about going outside and actually seeing it with your own eyes. Do you ever feel that way? That's like especially reassuring.
Yeah, I really encourage people to go out and connect with not just the moon, but the planets and the stars. Right now, we can see Jupiter in the sky, and we can see Saturn, and Venus has been visible and will be for a little bit while more. So go out and look at them. I have the Sky Guide app, and it's a really great app. It's just a couple dollars, and you can just point it up, and it shows you the constellations, and you can even search for things. So I think that really helps you connect with the sky. And the
Yeah, and I
moon,
think
moon is
also,
beautiful.
the moon is so beautiful. I'm such a
Mhm.
sucker for the moon, especially a full moon. But also, I think like it's so cool. We're talking about this energy. It seems kind of esoteric, like, oh, Saturn is forming this angle to Uranus or whatever. But then when you look up in the sky and you're like, wait, Saturn is actually right there. I had a friend send me a message that she got from a friend. So, kind of through technology, flying in a plane, and they were able to take a picture out the window and you could see Saturn with the phone camera and its rings. It was mind blowing.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. So
Yeah,
cool.
it was so cool. Good morning, Danny. Thank you for being here. And if you're hopping on and you have questions, we'll be going through each sign, but feel free to throw your questions in the comments. So let's talk about the energy we're feeling pretty much right now. The moon is forming a sextile to Chiron, or it formed a sextile at 5 a.m. So pulling away from this sextile to Chiron right now. And so I see that, as trying to play around with our orientation here so I don't cut you off, Celeste. The moon forming a sextile to Chiron is kind of giving us a little preview of this Chiron activation I think we're going to see over the next couple days, because Chiron stations direct, is it Sunday night? I'm pretty sure.
I think so.
Yeah. Let's see.
It's pretty
Pull up.
soon.
Yeah, it
can look
is.
it
I know
up.
it's the same day Venus goes retrograde. Okay, yeah.
Oh.
So Chiron goes direct, I believe,
The
that
19th?
night.
Okay.
Yes, sometime on the 19th, depending on where you live. But when the moon is activating Chiron this morning, I feel like it can give us, it's a supportive angle to Chiron. So it can kind of remind us of all the healing we've done this year so far, any healing you've been doing while Chiron has been retrograde since mid-July. And I love aspects to Chiron. I'm all about the healing journey, So how do you feel about this sextile between the moon and Chiron today, sort of leading up to this full moon?
Yeah, so Chiron is in Aries, and I have my natal Chiron is in Aries, so I've been experiencing my Chiron return.
Oh
So,
my gosh.
when we have sextiles, the planets are getting sexy with each other. So there is an opportunity, and Chiron's about healing. Now it can be healing or hurting. So I think with these aspects, we have to be aware that we can go high road or low road. So go high road, and Gemini rules children, it rules siblings. So maybe think about how you can reach out to your siblings or your child and do some healing today, or just, connect in a nice, sweet way, just in order to,
Yeah.
deepen your relationship.
That's a great point because, I'm an only child, so I don't tend to think about sibling relationships as much as, people with siblings. And I don't have that firsthand experience of like the trauma your siblings can cause you. So there's positives and negatives there, right? But yeah, that's a great way to look at it. And I love that you said sextiles are about getting sexy, because I've never heard that, but that's such a good comparison or, representation of a sextile, because it is a supportive angle, but it requires a little bit of effort. So, you gotta give to receive a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All
I
right.
got
And then
that from
tonight,
Stormy Grace, another astrologer, and I just loved it.
oh, is it, you said Stormy Grace?
Yes, Stormy Grace,
Oh,
she's
I have
amazing.
to check her out. That sounds so cool. Good morning, Crystal. Thanks for being with us. Okay, so the only other connection that the Gemini moon makes today on Friday is a trine to Saturn at 9 p.m. Pacific time. So we have really nice supportive angles today with the moon. The planets and bodies they're connecting with could bring up some negativity or trauma or pain, or, those things. Chiron and Saturn aren't necessarily the most positive energies when it comes to planets. But this nice harmonious angle between the Gemini moon and Saturn tonight, I see this as helping us understand more practically, maybe that healing you were talking about, giving us more of that objective view, because I see a lot of information coming to light with this Gemini moon, Gemini ruling information, ruling learning and teaching and understanding our mental health. But Saturn is that practical energy that helps us kind of take that objective view. And and also the planet of lessons, right? So this could help us easily understand, easily extract the lessons from any tension or any healing really we've been doing over the past 6 months. And I do like a Saturn aspect with the Gemini moon because I don't know if you've been feeling this, but maybe it's because I'm so mercurial. But while the moon has been in Gemini already, I'm just like chatting a million miles a minute. I want to talk. I want to learn. I'm so mentally stimulated. And Saturn, I think, can kind of easily tonight help us slow down a little bit, pump the brakes, have a little bit more patience, maybe slow down those thoughts as well. What do you think?
Yes, Gemini energy can be very scattered, and with that easy access to Saturn, who can help ground us. So, yeah, I think that's a great way to use that energy. It's really important to watch your mental thoughts, watch your, yeah, watch anxiety. If you have anxiety, Gemini moons can amp that up. So just keep that in mind and, yeah, use Saturn. I have Saturn on my sun, so I have to feel like Saturn's my friend. So I feel like it can bring us some discipline to what we're sharing, what we're speaking, and it can help ground us on the high road.
Saturn on your sun. That is an interesting little conjunction right there. But you do kind of have this like Saturnian vibe. Actually, before, as I was getting ready to come on, I'm sure you do this too. Like, I wonder what Celeste's birth chart looks like. I wonder where her placements are. And I knew that you were an earth sign. I'm like, she's very stable and steady and has this nice grounded energy. But I was like, is she a Taurus or a Capricorn? I don't know. So it's funny that you have your Saturn on your sun. Very Capricorn energy.
Yeah, Capricorn in disguise.
I love that so much. Okay, so now let's move ahead to Saturday and talk about the energy leading up to Saturday night's full moon, or I think for some people it'll be Sunday morning, depending on where you live. So we have actually another transit to talk about on Saturday as well, aside from the moon. So Chiron is really making itself known this weekend. We talked about the moon forming a sextile to Chiron today. Tomorrow, Saturday, Mercury squares off to Chiron on Saturday night. So, and then again, Chiron goes direct on Sunday. So it's almost like the universe is giving us like one final chance before Chiron goes direct to revisit any of those healing themes that came up over the past 6 months. And with Mercury and Capricorn, speaking of that practical Capricorn energy, this could bring, I think, some healing conversations or even some hard conversations that need to happen for healing, because this is a square, a 90-degree angle between these planets. So it is activating, it could bring some tension or force some things to come to light. So yeah, I would prepare for maybe some tough talks, especially if it's something you've been avoiding for a little bit. Full moons tend to bring up or illuminate those things that we've been hiding from. How do you see this square between Mercury and Chiron playing out over the weekend?
Yeah, so Mercury is in the sign of Capricorn, and Capricorn is ruled by Saturn, and that can be on the high road. Is very practical. It's very straightforward, but there's also a coldness to it. So we have to watch how we speak to our loved ones, because there could be words said that can come off as very harsh with that. But like you said, there's always the opportunity with Chiron for healing or hurting. So there can be these courageous conversations where if we treat each other with kindness, there could be some healing that comes from that.
I love how you said courageous conversations too, because with Chiron and Aries, that's definitely giving us the courage to do that healing, face our past pain, face our deepest wounds. But Mercury and Capricorn also has this courageous energy, not quite as, Capricorn energy isn't quite as like run into the fight as Aries energy is, but it is that protective, we'll do hard things to make sure that we're protected, or that, we have positive outcomes, that we're taken care of moving forward. All right, so that's kind of the main transit that's dominating Saturday, other than the full moon, which is probably why you're here. So we have a couple different connections that the moon makes before it becomes full on Saturday night for those of us here on the West Coast. Early Saturday morning, the moon squares off to Neptune at 6 a.m. So I imagine a lot of people will still be sleeping at this point, at least here on the West Coast, maybe on the East Coast or even overseas. People are feeling this a little bit more in their waking life, but pay attention. I say pay attention to any weird dreams that come through. Sometimes, especially on like a Saturday morning, since our sleep cycle is thrown off, sometimes I have the most vivid dreams because I am sleeping in or sleeping a little bit longer, you know? So I could see some really powerful messages coming through Saturday morning through your subconscious, especially with Neptune and Pisces, the sign of the subconscious, the planet of dreams, and then the Gemini moon bringing in, illuminating that information. Like, pay attention to any messages that come through or any dreams that you wake up and remember, because, you know, we don't remember so many of our dreams. But if you woke up and you're like, wow, that was weird, there might be something there. Do you ever notice that with your dreams?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea to keep a journal by your bed so that you can write down anything as soon as you wake up. And I've been having some weird dreams this whole week. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens tonight when the moon squares off with Neptune. Yes.
Yeah, for sure. And then the moon kind of quiets down, I believe, let me see, until 4 p.m. tomorrow. So that's kind of going to dominate the energy of the morning. And depending on where you live, it could just bring some downloads or some intuition in your waking life as well, or if you're an early riser. So again, even if thoughts seem random, sometimes that's the universe, God, source, whoever being like, hey, pay attention to this, listen to this. And, you know, the Gemini moon really is going to activate our mental state. So when Neptune is thrown into the mix, our intuition, spirit can come through a little bit more easily. Although this is a square between the moon and Neptune, so it could look a little bit more forceful, like, hey, pay attention to this, you know?
And when you put it together with the square of Mercury to Chiron, there can be confusion in your conversation. So one thing I just suggest to people, it's the holiday season, people going out to parties, just watch for overindulgence, because Neptune is about, can be about that escapism. So just watch for that, and then the words start flying and we can have confusion, misunderstandings and whatnot. So
especially with this social energy of the Gemini moon, I really see a lot of people, you know, the holidays are coming up. We're a week out from Christmas Eve right now, from Christmas tomorrow. People are going back to their hometowns. They're going out to drink. They are indulging, kind of escaping a little bit. And yeah, watch your words for sure. But also, I think this is an opportunity to give other people grace, because remember, you're not the only one that might be flubbing your words or saying something maybe that you didn't mean to say, or saying something a little bit more harshly than you meant to say it with Mercury and Capricorn. So try not to get offended or take things personally if someone else on the other end of the conversation says something stupid.
yeah, that's great advice. I think we just need to give people grace in general. We're in such a tense time, and there's some tense aspects we'll get to that we need to, you know, give people grace. Remember, the love is a good thing for us to do.
Yes. Yeah, especially on Venus isn't retrograde yet. So I know we're in the shadow period. It's going to go retrograde on Sunday, and we'll talk a little bit about that more in depth in a bit. But remember the love. That's going to be my mantra, Celeste, this weekend. Remember the love. And Julian says, give all the grace as well, which is great advice. And, you know, that's actually my partner on the live stream. So give me grace this weekend, okay? All right. So we had the moon squaring off to Chiron Saturday morning. By 4 p.m. on Saturday, things start to heat up with the moon before it becomes full. And so we have two awkward angles between 4 and 7 or 8 p.m., kind of dominating Saturday evening here on the West Coast. the moon forms this quincunx, this imbalanced angle or inconjunct angle, whichever term you prefer, to Pluto and then to Venus, because those two planets are still coming away from a conjunction to one another. That conjunction was exact last Saturday, and we talked a lot about that before last weekend, but these planets are still very close to each other, and as Venus is about to station retrograde, it's slowing down. It's really lingering around Pluto, which is going to make this Venus retrograde probably a little more intense than ones in the past. So when the moon forms this imbalanced angle to both of these planets on Saturday night, it could really bring your emotions into whatever transformation, shifts, changes have been coming up around love or money. But you know, when our emotions are activated by this angle, it could feel like, I see this as like, you know, the Gemini moon, we're like social, we want to be around other people, we're having fun, we're talking, chatting, things are pretty light. But on Saturday evening, you could be reminded of whatever transformation we were just talking about with Venus and Pluto, and it might not really feel like you want to go there, right? Like, you're over here, you're having fun, you're feeling it, and then this conjunction between Venus and Pluto is kind of in the back of your mind, and you can't forget about it, but you can't really use it or do anything with it either, because this angle is imbalanced and these planets are kind of working towards different motivations.
Yeah, a quincunx to me is like something needs an adjustment. It's an irritation. It's like a fly buzzing in your ear, so you can ignore it, or you can say something a little snarky to your partner, I think is how this will show up for a lot of people, because Venus and Pluto together brings intensity to relationships. So it's just a call with the moon in Gemini to just, you know, be conscious and watch your words and be the observer to how, like, if you suddenly get annoyed about something, this could be why. It could be this little irritation, this quincunx.
Totally. Especially if you're like, why am I irritated right now? Sometimes that can be that quincunx of like, you just don't really understand why you're feeling the way you're feeling. And it does take that kind of zoomed out perspective or being the observer of your thoughts, as you so beautifully said, to understand, hey, this might not actually be coming from within. This might be just this external energy that's kind of bothering me, like that fly buzzing. And you know, you mentioned giving your partner grace, maybe not saying that snarky, cold, harsh comment to your partner with Mercury and Capricorn. But I think that also goes for close friends too, especially with the moon in Gemini, siblings, as you mentioned, family members, but more of those partnership dynamics. So either romantic partners or partnerships as in friendships, as in sibling relationships, even business partnerships. I think, you know, the leaning into love, as you talked about, and giving people grace, like, we can't say that enough with the energy coming up over the next couple of days.
Yeah, even through the holidays. So it's really a time where we really need to take a step back and know our why before we say what we say, before we do what we do. I think will really help people.
Absolutely. I agree. Know your why. You just have all these great, you know, blurbs you're putting out there, this wisdom coming through, Celeste. Like, I need you on every morning.
I've got Venus and Mars and Gemini, so
I love that. You're like feeling this Gemini moon for sure. All right, so the last connection that the moon makes before it becomes full on Saturday night, this is one I'm really excited to talk about. The moon forms a trine to Jupiter at 10 p.m. Pacific. So, you know, we've had people say that they live on the other side of the world and these times don't exactly play out for them. This could look like Sunday morning if you live in Europe or, you know, on the other side of the world, or it could look like late Saturday night if you live on the East Coast. But for us here in California, it's 10 p.m. Pacific time, right before that moon becomes full. And when the moon forms a trine to Jupiter, if you're already out enjoying yourself, expect that energy to be amped up a little bit. You might, you know, beware of being too excessive here, because Jupiter is the planet of abundance, of excess, of optimism. You might think you can handle a little more liquor than you can, or, you might think that you'll have more energy late into the night than you actually do. But overall, this is just like a really positive aspect, helping us to get into that optimistic vibe, to enjoy other people's company, to be generous, we'll want to talk to other people. We'll want to expand our mind and have these beautiful, expansive conversations, maybe with old friends or new friends or just whoever you're around, your family. I love this aspect before the full moon on Saturday night. I think it's really going to set the stage for a fun night for a lot of people, Celeste.
Yes, yeah. And it's also an opportunity for people who are like struggling with all of the things that are going on to have some hope, to have some faith, and just try to have some fun. But like I said, there can be this anxious energy with the Gemini moon. So Jupiter makes everything bigger. So maybe take some time to ground yourself before you go out on Saturday night, where just some breathing or quick meditation or whatever tools you have to help yourself, ground before you go out can help you manage Jupiter for the best and just bring the fun.
I love that you said that, because you're so right. Gemini energy is so buzzy and mentally stimulating that, it can be great for socializing and having fun and celebrating, especially with this full moon energy inviting us to celebrate and, release and let go a little bit. But if you're someone, I know I'm this person who is really mentally stimulated all the time, or you're overthinking a little bit, especially with Mercury and Capricorn, it can be that kind of voice in the back of our head that's like worrisome, or like, why is this happening? Or trying to find a reason for everything. Grounding yourself, getting back into the body before you enter a social situation, I think is such great advice. And actually, now that I'm looking at the timing of it, this is happening almost at the exact same time as the full moon. So it's not even leading up to it. It's like Jupiter is part of this full moon this time around.
Yeah, and it's making a sextile to the sun and a trine to the moon. So I think it's beautiful. Yeah, that's my favorite aspect of this full moon.
Yeah, and this sextile between the Jupiter and the sun too can just amplify everything, right? It can, if you have a party planned for Saturday night, or you're going to a party on Saturday night, like, I don't know, expect things to get out of hand. That's the best advice I can give. Expect people to go a little buck wild under the full moon with Jupiter's influence. Like, if you love to rage, if you love to party, this is the night for you. If you're someone who can handle a little bit of interaction and then needs to have your space, grounding beforehand or preparing an exit plan might be a good idea.
Yeah, because emotions are high on the full moon anyway. So, yeah.
Yeah, I know. It's interesting. I'm sure you've seen like news stories about this, hospitalizations going up on the full moon because, regardless of the science behind it, there's a lot of theories, but the moon is activating all of our emotions. And when it becomes full, that's only amplified. But let's talk about the general energy of this full moon, and then we'll jump ahead to Sunday and give a little preview of Venus retrograde and what's going on with that. So, the full moon is the time of celebration. I see it as this culmination point. And this full moon is the last full moon of 2021. So not only is it the culmination of the past 2 weeks since the solar eclipse, the past month since the last full moon, the past 6 months since the new moon in Gemini, but I just see this as the culmination of 2021 as a whole. And with it being in Gemini, I see it as really illuminating everything we've learned so far this year. With Chiron involved, all of the healing we've done, all of the information that's come through, all of the friendships we've made, the connections we've made. I like I said, I keep seeing celebration, but also this honoring of how much you've grown and how far you've come in 2021. I think a lot of people have experienced a ton of growth this year.
Yeah, so there's two things I think are really big about this full moon. Number one, the nodes, the North Node and the South Node, have been in the signs of Gemini and Sagittarius since May of 2020. So we as a collective have been working to reach towards Gemini ideals of being curious, taking in new informations, and discharging, like the North Node is increased, the South Node is decreased, discharging dogmatic thinking and things like that. So it's a really good time to have some reflection on what you've learned over the last 18 months since the North Node has been in Gemini, because this is the last Gemini moon before, I think, before the moon, well, full moon, before the nodes change into Taurus and Scorpio. So that's
Yeah,
a
that's
big
happening
thing.
in later this month or early January, right? I can't remember the
January
exact date.
18th.
Love it. Perfect.
Yeah. And then there are also these things called moon phase families. There is this astrologer named Dietrich Pessin who noticed in her work that we'll have a new moon at a degree, and then 9 months later, we'll have a first quarter moon at approximately the same degree as that. And then 9 months after that, we'll have a full moon. 9 months after that, a last quarter moon. So these 2.5 year cycles called moon phase families or the lunar gestational cycle can be like bigger things come to light over this longer period of time. Well, the new moon in the cycle, so we're at 27 Gemini on tomorrow. The new moon was at 0 degrees of Cancer, which is a world point, meaning that it's things come to light that have a larger significance, as well as it was a solar eclipse. So things will be coming to light that were initiated around the solar eclipse, or there'll be some kind of culmination. So think back as well to June of 2020 and what you've learned about yourself, about how you handle emotions, Gemini and Cancer, that mix since then, or some things to think about with this full moon. The whole COVID story, it's a really good time to just reflect on how you've moved through this time.
And you almost took the words out of my mouth because, I think this is a good point to talk about the fact that Saturn and Uranus are coming into this final square with one another. We went into a lot more detail about this in yesterday's show, but these three squares have dominated 2021, mid-February, mid-June, and there's been a lot of shifts around restriction, liberation, things opening up, things closing back down, our health. A lot of the themes of Saturn and Uranus have been really reflective of what's been going on with COVID this year. Not quite that, total collapse and huge shift that we saw in 2020, but kind of this like, are we moving forward? Are we going back? Are we going into the future? Are we going back to the past? And this third and final square between Saturn and Uranus will be exact on Christmas Eve. So, and it's within a degree of each other now. We're really feeling this energy. And I think, with all the reflection that you've been talking about over the past 2 years, like you said, the COVID story will be really apparent around this full moon. Everything we've learned, all the information that's already come to light this year. And that might be on your mind if you are out at a gathering or hanging with family, because, unfortunately, COVID hasn't gone away yet. And already we're hearing rumblings again of, okay, are there going to be more restrictions, or are we finally going to be liberated from this pandemic? And I know, Celeste, you're in the Bay Area, so, and I'm in Sacramento. So, we're both in California, one of the most restricted states when it comes to COVID. But even I'm sure where you are in the Bay Area has been way more restricted than most places in the entire nation. So do you have any advice for people if that is coming up on the full moon? You're invited to this celebration, you really want to go, but there's part of you that's like, should I? Or how does COVID play into this?
Yeah, I would just recommend that, you just take some precautions. around this Omicron variant. Seems like it causes less severe illness, but I don't want it anyway. I don't care. So, masking up, just being aware of who you're around, I think are things to think about. But I think Omicron is about the Saturn Uranus square. So the June 14th was right around the time that the Delta variant became made news. So that was the second Saturn Uranus square. So Saturn, like boundary structures, the vaccine, Uranus, the variant breaking through those boundaries. So that's another illustration of the Saturn Uranus square. So just to back up, COVID story was on. Astrologers knew something big was coming because Saturn and Pluto, Saturn being structures, governments, what have you, Pluto destruction, came together on a world point of 22.5 degrees of Capricorn on January 12th. And that's kind of started like the collapse, the decay, the big changes of societies, governments, all of this stuff with this disease. And then this year we're having that fight against the old and the new, fight against restrictions versus limitations with the Saturn Uranus square. And in our own lives, we're all called, somewhere in our charts, we're all called to release, wherever Saturn is in your chart, release these restrictions, outdated structures, things you've outgrown by awakening, and Uranus, the great awakener, awakening to how you can move forward in this new world. So if you haven't made the changes yet, hopefully it'll be illuminated for you what you need to do through this full moon and through the last Saturn Uranus square on Christmas Eve.
And with Chiron in the mix too, it could feel a little bit painful to face these things, right? But just know that if that's coming up for you, if you are dealing with that restriction, liberation, old, new conflict, you are right on time. You are aligned with the energy. Even if it feels difficult, there's a reason this is happening. And, you talked about the Delta variant with the second square in mid-June. And the first square was in mid-February. So that was kind of that point when everybody thought everything was going to open up. And then all of a sudden restrictions were placed back on everybody, or most people, depending on where you live. And so, yeah, I do see this final square being that Omicron variant. And with the moon in Gemini, it's like, okay, do we have the information? Are we able to move forward and be liberated from this? Do we have the technology with, that Uranus piece? I know Pfizer has come out with a pill, so that could be a thing. Vaccine technology, like you were talking about. But I think as far as this full moon goes, heading into the holidays, that advice of protecting yourself or taking precautions, even if you don't exactly know where you stand on it, bring the mask to the gathering, right? Bring the hand sanitizer to whatever gathering you're going to. Have the tools on you wherever you are to make yourself feel comfortable and protected in whatever situation you're in. It's not necessarily about making everybody else comfortable at this point. It's about making yourself comfortable and making sure that you are protected and you are safe regardless of the situation, or at least having the option to do so. And one more thing that came up when you were talking about the Saturn square to Uranus is that if you're around family this holiday season, which most people are, this could bring some conflict between generations. I really see, the older generation of Saturn, our ancestors, our elders, conflicting with the newer generation, and that could be around technology use. Maybe your grandma is getting mad at you for being on your phone too much, or it could be surrounding COVID. Older generations either taking more precautions or less precautions depending on their belief system, and younger generations having their own beliefs that conflict with family members. So that could come up as well, and I would just suggest that you are grounded going in, as you mentioned, and know your why and know where you stand before you go into these social situations.
And maybe stay away from things like politics and religion and these hot button topics, because Saturn Uranus square as well is Uranus is not just like conflict, it's like explosive conflict. So the mashed potatoes could start flying unexpectedly, where things that have been said before suddenly like go from 0 to 1,000. So that's another thing to keep in mind. And I want to say another thing about Saturn Uranus. So Saturn is in the sign of Aquarius. Saturn is cold and dry. I'm not a weather astrologer, but Saturn in Aquarius is known for extreme weather, and that has been part of the theme of 2021. And on February 17th, when we had the first square, that was when Texas, Colorado, parts of Oregon had those mass power outages, like to the day, which was things we've never seen before. So think back to that. Now, these tornadoes that have been ripping through the Midwest also are part of Saturn Uranus. So I'm recommending to people to just be prepared in case structures you've relied on break down, like the power grid. So make sure you know where your flashlights are. I've been charging all of my little things that you can charge your phone with. Get your gas tank full, because there could be like extreme weather this next week.
That's great advice. And as you're saying that, I'm like, thank goodness we've been getting so much rain in California, because wildfires here have been terrible for the past 5, 6, 7 years now. And I'm so thankful that the brush isn't dry, but at the same time, this can bring unexpected weather events. So being a former, yes, you read my mind, Celeste. I am a former reporter, so I know firsthand, I've been sent out to the mudslide, sent out to the flooding that happens after wildfires. And this fire season wasn't that bad in California, but even if you live in a place as beautiful as this, as we're lucky to live in, that has more mild weather, we don't get the tornadoes or the hurricanes, like Celeste said, maybe be prepared for the unexpected through the holidays, through the end of the year, not just this weekend for the full moon. But, the full moon adds that other layer of heightened emotions and sometimes can bring weather events in its own right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
yeah,
let's talk.
Neptune is in a wide square with the full moon. So again, Neptune, water, California, we're having a lot of rain next week. So yeah, I think we may see some bad storms again next week.
I know, it's like a double-edged sword for us here in this drought-stricken land. We're like, we need the water, but not too much at once, please.
Yeah, exactly. Moderation,
Awesome. Okay.
which Jupiter and Neptune don't bring.
What moderation? What is that? At least Saturn is kind of the limiter, it can kind of slow us down a little bit. Let's hope that it does its job when it comes to the weather. All right, let's go through each sign and what house this full moon is activating. So if people are watching, they know how to use this energy. Actually, Danny asked a little bit ago, how do I learn to use these energies? Well, Danny, you're already watching this, so you're learning as you watch, but now we'll break it down based on your specific sign. And if you know your rising sign, certainly pay attention to that a little bit more, because that will give you an idea of what house this full moon is falling in for you. But if you don't know your rising sign, your sun sign can give you a lot of insight as well. So I figure we'll just go through each of the signs. Does that sound good to you?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Awesome. Okay, so let's start with Gemini, since this full moon is in Gemini, and that means that the full moon will land in the first house for Geminis and Gemini's rising. So this is all about your identity, your sense of self. Gemini, this full moon is kind of your little personal new year, or you can really, it's almost like a graduation vibe. Like you can really celebrate yourself and everything you've learned. Maybe you've had a lot of physical accomplishments this year as well. That could be brought to light over the course of this weekend. And yeah, you could see yourself in a new light or even get new information that helps you see yourself in a new light by the end of the weekend. What do you think, Celeste?
Yeah, and I think it's a great thing for Geminis to think about how have you evolved yourself as well as your partner, because with the nodes in Gemini and Sag, the eclipses have been bouncing back and forth between yourself and your relationship. So what are the last things you're ready to shed? Full moons are times to shed old stories. So is there anything else you want to shed about your identity to transform yourself and your relationship? And with Venus conjunct Pluto, that's a perfect thing to do with this.
Definitely. I love that. We talk about the culmination point of the full moon, but once that moon is full, it starts to release and we go into the waning phases of the moon. So, Saturday night could feel really fun and buzzy regardless of your sign. And then Sunday is the beginning of the next 2 weeks of release and letting go. So if there is that new insight that comes in, think about how you can use that to release, like Celeste said. Look, somebody said, I have Gemini rising in my first house. You're lucky because we got to you first. So yeah, you could have a renewed sense of self by the end of the weekend, or just some major realizations about your sense of self. Let's move on to Taurus. So this is, I know you're not a Taurus rising, but still, for all of our Tauruses, Celeste, this is going to be activating the second house of values, of physical possessions, of money, of income. So this could look like that, nice Christmas bonus for you because this is that culmination point, or it could be about releasing beliefs around income and money and worth that have been coming up for you and being activated, as you mentioned, with this eclipse cycle on your axis between the Taurus Scorpio axis, the second and eighth houses. If there have been limiting beliefs about money, about your value as a person, about your work, what you do to attain money, that could certainly be coming back up and being revisited around the full moon. And if you do get those insights, I think, just like we said for Gemini, this is the time to figure out how to release them before the new year.
Yeah. And for myself, being a Taurus, so this falling in my second house, what I did, and it hit, there was an eclipse November 30th, which was a lunar eclipse in Gemini of 2020. And Venus rules, it hit my Venus rules money. Over this time, over this year and a half, I have changed my career. I left corporate America and now I'm an astrologer, coach, and intuitive full time. So that is the work I've been doing over this last year and a half with this second house of money, finances, values. So this is just an example of, so think back this whole time. What has changed in your work? Have you been part of the great resignation, that Saturn Uranus square where people are leaving their jobs? Yeah, and are making big changes to their careers.
That's me. I was part of the great resignation.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, I left my job beginning of October, so a little late to the party, but it happened. Here we are, and the Saturn Uranus square, like you talked about, I think a lot of people are craving that freedom, freeing themselves from structures, freeing themselves from the structure of a 9-to-5 job or a corporate job, like you said. So especially for Taurus and, even Scorpios, I would say those themes could have come up too, of wanting to be liberated when it comes to your career, or just having a change in perspective about your money and how you attain money. All right, let's move on to Aries. This full moon is activating the third house for our Aries friends and Aries rising. So the third house is that Gemini energy. It's all about communication, learning, those sibling relationships. What information have you learned over the past year, over the past 6 months? Really reflect on everything you've learned and This could be a point where you realize too, okay, what do I want to teach in 2022? After all the information I've gained, after all the work I've done on myself, especially with Chiron in the mix, am I ready to teach and share this insight? So I could see that coming up for you, especially with this full moon in Gemini, making us want to be a little bit more vocal and share a little bit more and connect with other people, really reflect on all of the lessons you've learned. And these don't even have to be hard lessons, just whatever information has come to light for you throughout 2021.
Yeah. I think it's also about what new skills have you, taken on, as well as how has your relationship changed with your local environment, with your community, with your neighbors. Maybe take some time to think about that and celebrate any wins that have happened. Because a lot of people, especially if you had a job where you were traveling a lot before the pandemic, did you have an opportunity to get a deeper relationship with your local community throughout this and celebrate it?
Definitely. I love that perspective. So let's move on to Pisces. This full moon is landing in the 4th house for our Pisces and Pisces rising. And so this is really going to activate your home life, your family, potentially your relationship with your mother. How has that all changed for you over the last year? I know a lot of us now have different relationships to literally our houses after 2020, after being kind of locked in them. But coming out of the pandemic, I think a lot of people's perspectives shifted about our homes. If we want to spend more time here, some people, those introverts were like, ooh, this is nice, I can just work from home. Or if you're a very extroverted person, it might have been like, oh my goodness, I need to get out of here. So yeah, your relationship to your home, your relationship to your immediate family as well. Goes without saying, the same thing could have happened. You might have spent more time with your family during the pandemic and realized, oh my gosh, like I've been missing this, I've been missing out. Or could have had the opposite effect where you're like, these people are driving me nuts and I need to get out of here. So how has that changed over the past year? Reflect on that. And if there are any lingering beliefs or really any lingering tension in that area of your life, this is the time to release it so you don't bring it into 2022.
Yeah, and Pisces is a mutable sign, just like Gemini. So they are in a square. So there has been likely some tension with these eclipses that have been bouncing back between the home, family, and foundation for Pisces and your career, and you and your out in the outer world. So yeah, great to think about both of those topics, I think, for Pisces.
Yeah, definitely that like internal versus external energy, or even, one of my friends, Shauna, who watches the show all the time. We love her. She's super into astrology. She is a Pisces, and I know she has really been, that's really been playing out for her. So when you were talking, I was just like, oh my gosh, this is Shauna's story. She has these career aspirations and wants to put herself out there and has been dabbling in all these things surrounding a business with astrology. But also she has this beautiful baby at home, this little Gemini girl who she adores and wants to spend all of her time with. So you might be feeling that as well, where you enjoy being around your family, but you have bigger dreams. This is kind of the point where you can look ahead to 2022 and maybe find some clarity with the Gemini full moon on what it is that you really want in these areas. All right, let's move on to Aquarius and Aquarius rising. This is activating the 5th house for you. So the 5th house is that inner child. It's that joy, that creativity, that expression, maybe even some performance aspect. Kids are always kind of putting on a show for us. So I really see this full moon activating your inner child, which could be really fun, especially with a Gemini moon. It could be that you're around old friends from your childhood or around your siblings around the holidays, and you're reminded of that past little version of yourself who lives inside of you. Or on the other hand, it could activate I like to call it your inner toddler, not your inner child, because that like terrible 2, terrible 3 phase where they're just kind of the worst, or they're the cutest and then they're the worst. So yeah, really listen to your inner child over this full moon and at the same time, think about how your inner self is being accepted by the people around you, or how you're fitting into the collective, because this is going to activate your 11th house as well. So yeah, I really see, like, tap into that inner child, have fun with it, but don't let it fully take over. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and this fifth house also, I think about children, I think about romance, anything that brings you joy. So think about all those things, Aquarius, as well as Saturn has been in your sign. So think about what you have, Saturn separates, what you have separated from emotionally or physically or whatever during this, bounce back and forth with the eclipses, or how you found different ways of finding your joy and celebrate that.
But I think also this full moon is just going to be a lot of fun for Aquarius and Aquarius
Mhm.
rising, because, it does activate your house of joy and love and creativity, and
Mhm.
also, as we mentioned, activates your place in the collective. So if you're in a group setting, I really see this being a really fun energy for Aquarius and Aquarius rising. And sometimes Aquariuses like to have fun, I think, but because they're a fixed sign, sometimes they can be like a little bit hesitant or resistant, or not want to fully like open up, but this is your sign to like allow your that inner child to come out, and remember who you were as a kid, when you weren't like worried about what everybody was thinking of you, right? Like, you were just marching to the beat of your own drum and doing your own thing. Tap into that energy if you're an Aquarius or an Aquarius rising.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. Okay, Capricorns, this is activating the sixth house for you of health, wellness, and routine. So, over the past year, if you're a Cap or a Cap rising, your routine might have changed. Your relationship to your body, your health, what you're eating, how you're exercising might have changed. Or you might have felt like you wanted to make that change. So this is that point to reflect on where you're at with your own health journey, or even, your mental health journey with the moon being in Gemini. Maybe you've been craving a morning routine or some sort of routine, and you just haven't really implemented it yet. So this is a time to reflect on, I think, what you want your routine, what you want your habits to look like in 2022. Because, we can set these great intentions this Saturday, but we all know that around the holidays, sure, you can stick to your routine, but it's a little harder to implement something new a week out from Christmas, when we have all these cookies and sweets and things around us. So I see this as really reflecting on your relationship to your health and wellness over the last year, and releasing anything that needs to be let go so you can step into a healthier state, whatever that means for you in 2022.
Yeah, and this is the chop wood, carry water house. So it's all about those like you said, routines, rituals, the mundane tasks that we do that help support us. You can also think about being of service to others. So this is a great time to think about, how you can help someone who's, less fortunate, if you can help them with finances, or, donating to charities, or volunteering in some way. I think that's a great thing for Capricorns to think about, or perhaps do with this
Yeah,
full
I
moon
love that.
energy.
And, a lot of people, we haven't really talked about the ritual aspect, the manifestation aspect of full moons. You can manifest again now that we're out of eclipse season. I know a lot of people were like, when do I manifest? But something that a lot of manifestation experts talk about is being generous and giving back, and then that energy coming back to you. So a great ritual for you, Capricorn, if you are looking to manifest, and I know if you're a Capricorn, you might not be super into the woo woo, you kind of like to have like a practical ritual of some sort. Toys for Tots, go donate a toy, donate to a local charity around the holidays, and do so with just that pure intention of wanting to serve, because I know you, Capricorn. I know that you want the long-term wealth. You want to build your empire in 2022, but really just focus on service for the next couple weeks, and that energy will come back to you multiplied in the coming year. So that could be your full moon ritual, is just giving to charity or doing something charitable. Okay, Sagittarius. This is activating the 7th house. So I love that you brought up relationships with Gemini in the first house, that being activated for you, Geminis. Same thing goes for Sagittarius because this full moon lands in the 7th house. So that same pattern of self versus relationship, either romantically, in a business partnership, in friendships, how much you're giving, how much you're receiving, that could play out during this full moon. But I think also, if you're in a relationship, this could be just a really fun vibe with your partner over the weekend. If you're going to a gathering together, you could have a lot of fun with your partner with this full moon. But if there have been any sort of relationship struggles or tension in your relationship, Venus is going retrograde on Sunday. So those will definitely be illuminated as well during this Gemini full moon. Expect, if there's been any tension, for that to definitely be magnified. And even if there hasn't been tension, you might even see some snags come up over the next couple weeks. So if you're in a good vibe for the Gemini full moon, this could be a time to really seal that energy and lock it in and express to your partner how much you appreciate them and how grateful you are for them in your life, and really get on the same page before Venus retrograde.
Yeah, and I've recommended to people with Venus conjunct Pluto, which is happening. It already happened once. It's going to happen again on Christmas Day. Write a love letter to your partner. I think that's a great thing to do, especially for Sagittarius. And since the South Node has been in Sagittarius for the last year and a half, it's a really good time to reflect for Sagittarius. What have you released from your life? What old stories have you burned off? South Node kind of takes things away. So yeah, and celebrate. It's going to be moving into Scorpio, so you've done the work that you've karmically needed to do with looking at the shadows of your energy. And yeah, so treat your partner kindly. Try to keep some of that blood talk in your head.
Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of times.
Enjoy.
Yeah, my mom is a Sag and a Sag rising, and she'll probably watch this. She also has a Gemini moon, so I warned her. I'm like, this full moon is gonna be big for you. I don't know exactly how, but just expect something big. But I think a lot of times Sagittarius with that optimistic Jupiter energy can just kind of, even with the Gemini full moon this weekend, float on that surface level of yay, we're having fun, we're external, we're go, 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 we're doing all the things. But I love that you encourage people to write a love letter to your partner, or even if it's not writing a letter, doing something intentional around your relationship, taking that moment just for your relationship, or even just for a friendship that's really important to you, can help you kind of bond a little bit more and get into that harmonious state with the other person, like you said before Venus goes retrograde, and this Venus-Pluto conjunction continues to play out over the next month or two. Okay, Scorpio, 8th house. This full moon is right at home for you, Scorpio. You are very familiar with that 8th house energy. This is literally all about energy for you, Scorpios. So I think take stock of where your energy levels have been at throughout the year. What contracts have you made throughout the year, either energetically or physically? Did you buy a house? Did you get a new job? Where do those things stand? If you have contract renewals or opportunities coming up, this is really a time to reflect on how you want your energy to be tied up, because the 8th house is all about those energetic connections, those energetic bonds. So if bonds have been broken this year, reflect on that. If you're hoping to make bonds energetically, really think about your values and how they play into that. And then also, sex. So if you're a Scorpio, hey, this full moon probably going to be great for you.
Yeah, you could have some really hot, sexy time with your partner, yourself, or whatever.
Whoever, yeah.
And really good time to reflect on how you share your resources, how you share power with others. So some thoughts about that would be good, and about your mental relationship around these things.
Yeah, and I love that you said power. Like this could be that opportunity to check your power. Have you given any of your power away? Do you need to reclaim it before the end of 2021? Or on the other hand, have you been a little bit too overpowering of people around you? That could be something, especially if you're a Scorpio, you like that sense of control. Maybe that's something you need to release before 2022, realizing that you can only control yourself, right? Okay, let's talk about Libras and Libra risings. The lovely Libra. This is activating the ninth house of expansion. So this could be all about travel for you, really. You know, we've all been thinking about travel, maybe longing for travel, but you might get that urge this weekend to like book the trip, you know? You might be like, I need some expansion in 2022, or this could be spiritual expansion. So you might have, you know, some illumination around your own spirituality or your own higher education, even what you want to learn in 2022, everything you've learned, not just kind of the skills and the basics, but if you expanded spiritually in 2021, I think a lot of people have. This is a time to reflect on that, how you want to keep expanding, and any limiting beliefs around your own spirituality, your own connection to source, your own ability to expand, whether that's financially or physically, traveling or mentally with the moon in Gemini. This is really going to illuminate how you've expanded already and where some expansion might still be needed.
Yeah. And I think as well, a good thing for Libras to think about is Venus rules your sign. Venus is in Capricorn, another cardinal sign, which is in a square to Libra. So this Venus-Pluto conjunction is especially going to be activating for Libras. So think about your relationship with your partner. It's a really good time to secrets could be revealed. There can be some courageous conversations. And yeah, so think about how you can, if you're doing too much people pleasing, which can be a shadow of Libra, how can you get your own power back so that you can, expand to your highest potential in your life.
Definitely. I love that. I feel like that's always the horoscope for Libra. Like, how much are you people pleasing, Libra? Come on, like take stock, and that is part of your own expansion, is understanding how much of yourself you're giving away that maybe doesn't feel great. Okay, let's move on to Virgos and Virgo risings. I'm really excited about this full moon. It's in my 10th house of career. And, you gave your little anecdote about how the moon cycle has affected you. I could say a similar story. My career has completely shifted over the past 6 months, even over the past year. I'm part of the Great Resignation as well. And, this is really a time, Virgos and Virgo risings, to reflect on the career moves you've made in the past year, even the investments in long-term wealth you might have made over the past year, and also look ahead to 2022, see if there's anything standing in your way of furthering your career or getting to that next step, continuing to build your empire or your business or your wealth, your investments, your wallet, all those things.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's wonderful to Virgo to think about your place in the world. Having your midheaven in Virgo, that is, the highest point you can achieve. And these eclipses have been activating for you. And also releasing any old stories of self-criticism that can come up with strong Virgo energy. And yeah, just having some pride and celebration of how far you've come over this year.
I'll take it. I'll take that message, Celeste. I'm celebrating the career moves for sure.
Congratulations. Doesn't it feel good?
It feels so good. It really does. I will say I've never worked harder in my life than working for myself, but I'm so passionate about it and I love it so much that it feels good. But, something when you said that came up for me and probably will come up for other Virgos is, not having that expectation of where you need to be in your career at this moment or in 2022. It's awesome to set goals, and Virgos, we love to have the plan, we love to have the goals, we have high expectations of ourselves mostly, and of course the people around us. But, if you're not exactly in the place you want to be in your career right now, and you're a Virgo or Virgo rising, still celebrate everything you've learned. Even knowing that you're not where you want to be is a huge achievement. So, it might be about releasing expectations in your career over the next couple weeks and learning to just flow with whatever the universe is planning for you, and just really focusing on yourself and that intention behind what you want, rather than having the expectation of, this is where I need to be, this is how much money I need to be making by the end of the year, blah, 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 Or at least that's how I feel. Okay, let's talk about the 11th house, our Leos and Leo risings. Again, this is going to be a really fun full moon for you. This is all about the group, the collective, humanity. So it'll feel especially enjoyable if you're a Leo to be around a group of people. And if you're a Leo, you probably love that. You want to kind of be the center of attention, show off a little bit. Not a bad thing. Definitely a fun energy for that. But also, pay attention to what causes you deeply care about, because the 11th house is that humanitarian house, is about thinking about the globe, thinking globally. So, this could be a time, like we said, for Capricorns even. If you're looking for a ritual for the full moon, it could be about giving back to a cause, or even, if you're looking for something to do surrounding Christmas, maybe instead of gifts for this year, you ask for donations to your favorite charity. And that could be a really great ritual for you to kind of get into the energy that you want to be in for 2022.
Yeah, and a great time to consider, like, what have you learned about your friendships over this time, and yeah, celebrate them. Leo, I'm not worried about you. I know you're gonna have some fun this weekend. Yes, if you're going out.
Yeah, or
Yeah.
even, a lot of people have made friendships online over the pandemic, which I think is really
Oh, yeah.
kind of one of the silver linings. So if you don't have big plans this weekend, which is kind of shocking if you're a Leo, I think, but, I'm not judging. But you could even be, Leo is that leader energy in a lot of ways. So if you don't have plans, you can make the plans, right? Invite your friends, be that person, or have like a Zoom meetup with your friends. Maybe introduce people that don't know each other through technology, because technology is really big in the 11th house too, and you could be the host of this Zoom meetup and make connections all over the world with the people you've met online. So if you're looking for something fun to do and you're not seeing like a physical gathering or something local that you want to go to, maybe broaden your horizon a little bit and think of how you can bring your communities and your friends together.
That sounds great.
Okay, last but not least, and I know you're a Cancer rising, Celeste, so this is going to be activating for you in your 12th house if you're a Cancer or Cancer rising. Really a beautiful energy to end out the year, the last house of the zodiac. And with Chiron in the mix, I really think this is going to be a lot about healing for our Cancer friends. What has healed this year? What still needs to be healed? What needs closure still? What needs to kind of be finished out before we start the new year? And some of that could also could have to do with your relationship to spirituality, right? Or leaning into that, your own personal relationship with God, with spirit, could help you gain some clarity in your healing journey. And don't be surprised if you have kind of messages come through if you do take the time to be still and sit with your own healing and reflect on it.
Yeah, and I see this 12th house as a house of mental health, and it can also be about self-undoing. So Cancers, what do you need to release in order to be your healthiest self, especially with mental health? Gemini, the mental processes. I love the Insight Timer app. If you need help like grounding or calming yourself down, that's something you can do, like meditations or yoga nidra. So just make sure to support your mental health, and be aware for downloads. The 12th house, you can get insights. Something I did mention, Mercury is in this quintile relationship with Neptune,
Oh.
which is a grace note. It's this soft aspects that's 72 degrees and it's exact. And so that can bring unexpected insights and things to you.
Yeah, and I think meditating is a great suggestion if you're a Cancer or a Cancer rising. Even if you don't really know what you're trying to find clarity around, or even if there's not something in your face that you like need to heal right now, having that stillness, having that quiet can be really profound and bring those downloads. And I love that you suggested an app too, because at least for me, I don't know about you as a Cancer rising, but with being so ruled by Mercury for me, I have a really hard time quieting the mind. So having a guided meditation is really helpful for me. And I've had some of the most profound downloads after guided meditation. So you don't have to sit in silence necessarily to go to that place.
Yeah, I like guided meditations. I have some difficulty with just the straight silence.
I think it's, those of us who are earth signs, we're very like, we're in the 3D, okay? We're here. We are very aware of the physical and what's going on around us. And we're already thinking about all the things we need to get done today, So yeah, guided meditations are super helpful for me. I have a really hard time without guidance. Awesome. Okay, so those were the 12 signs, and if you missed yours, once we stop streaming, I'll go through and add markers to this YouTube video so you can easily find your sign. You don't have to scrub through the whole video. I love people commenting. Amani saying Grand Rising. Thank you for being here. I want to talk about one more thing before I let you go, kind of the bookend of this wild weekend we have coming up on Sunday. We have Venus going retrograde for the next month and a half or so. And Venus is the planet of love and money. So it's almost like we have like this party energy, this fun energy on Saturday night with the full moon in Gemini, making us be a little bit more social, bringing in these insights. And then Sunday, things could shift a little bit as Venus goes retrograde, and specifically with our relationships or with our money. But more so, I see this surrounding relationships and long-term commitments with Venus being in Capricorn. If there are any long-term situations that you're unsure about, those might be cleared out in the next month and a half. And I will say, heading into the holidays, a lot of people are going to be hearing from their exes, especially if you're back in your hometown. Like, expect to run into them, expect for them to text you, expect for them to hit you up, see how your life has been around the holidays. I see that coming up a lot for this Venus retrograde. What about you?
Yeah, so when planets go retrograde, a lot of times they don't act in there's some difficulty with that. So it's a time for us to slow down, to reassess, to reconsider our values. So people are going to be reconsidering their relationships. And with the Saturn Uranus square, some relationships will have to have mass changes or even breakdown. So be aware of that happening. And one thing, like thinking about the whole story, this is the first holiday season. A lot of people are coming back together again for Christmas. And so people will have expectations of having a lot of fun. And when Venus is retrograde, sometimes if we go on vacation or we go to a party, it just sometimes does not meet our exact expectations. So manage your expectations on that. Venus also rules beauty. So this is not a time to get a new fancy fandangled haircut or a plastic surgery. Don't do it.
Don't get Botox. Do not get Botox while Venus is retrograde. Like, you're going to end up with like one of the, have you seen the bad Botox where people's eyes are like permanently funky from getting it done wrong or whatever? Like, just don't do anything major to your appearance.
Yeah.
Not a good idea.
Yeah, don't do it. So, but yeah, I think it's a really great time to like think about your relationships, reassess your values. Venus is with Pluto. So what do you need to transform your relationships or make some changes in order to improve them going forward into 2022. Because I'm looking forward to that. I think that will bring, like, I mean, there'll be some difficulties, but there'll be some certain lightening up of things, especially when Jupiter goes into Pisces.
Yes, which is happening next week, a week and a half from now,
The
28th,
28th,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And as you were talking about managing expectations, something that came to mind for me is that if you are around family for the first time again, or, a lot of people just see extended family members around the holidays, and that's kind of the only time they see extended family. I see Venus retrograde as like, so when are you getting married? So when are you having kids? Those conversations. How's your relationship going? And that can kind of put pressure on things as well, or make you think about, okay, actually, when are we going to get married? When are we going to have the kids? Like, all of your family members' expectations can kind of be thrown into the mix with this Venus retrograde and, the Venus-Pluto conjunction as well. We've already started to feel this energy in the past week or so. So if there have been issues already coming up surrounding your relationship, that was kind of like a little preview of the next month and a half to come. And I consider you kind of lucky if you already got that preview. It won't blindside you too much, hopefully. But yeah, I see the next month and a half in relationships. It could bring really profound changes and breakthroughs because of that conjunction with Pluto. So it could be that long-term commitment comes through. I guarantee we'll see a million proposals around the holidays like we normally do, right? But it could also be that moment where somebody gets cold feet and realizes they don't want this situation long term. So be prepared for shifts in your relationship, both for the positive or the negative, depending on where you're at. But yeah, I think it's important, as you mentioned, to not let other people's expectations influence whatever's going on between you and your partner, or even not just about romance, but also expectations about money. Because a lot of times when we're around our families, they get really protective of us, or they kind of get nosy and ask how much we're making, or what our goals are for money, or if we're investing, or, all of those things that can be really invasive feeling for a lot of us. So having proper boundaries will be really nice. And the Saturn-Uranus square can really bring up issues of boundaries as well. But yeah, make sure you're in a solid place. Like what we said at the beginning of this live stream, get grounded, know your why, know where you're at before you enter any social situations, any family situations, because with Venus retrograde, it could make you feel like you're going back into like a past version of yourself, or past beliefs about love and money and all that good stuff.
Yeah, and I think have a sense of humor when you have nosy, busybody relations. And I think the mood is going to be on Leo on Christmas. So just try to laugh it off if somebody is saying sideways things. People who are happy with their own lives don't need to say things to other people to make them feel less than or what have you. So
yeah, the Leo moon. The Leo moon can help you have a little fun with it, right?
Yeah.
Like even just joke about it a little bit, and grandma's like, when are you two gonna get married? Like, I don't know, grandma, when do you think we should get married? Just like play into it in a lighthearted, fun way.
Yeah.
And that can just help kind of like lighten the mood and move past any uncomfortable conversations without causing conflict with that Saturn-Uranus square, conflict between generations. If you can kind of manage your own energy and like, your energy affects other people. So with that Leo moon, like come in with the fun energy and stand in that energy, and the people around you will rise to meet you.
Yeah. And grandma just wants the best for you. So just know she's just asking because she loves you. Don't get upset.
Spoken like a true Cancer rising. You're like, it's all just motherly love. All right. I end all of these live streams with a card pull. So I'm going to pull from the Queen of the Moon Oracle deck, since we're talking all about the moon. But while I shuffle... Oh, it is by Stacey DeMarco.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I love pulling cards at the end of the show, because sometimes it reveals insights that maybe I missed, or, just some good food for thought. But while I shuffle these up and get ready to do our poll, if you want to tell people how to get in touch with you or just add any more insights that maybe we didn't get to in the live stream.
Okay, yeah. So I'm Celeste Brooks of Astrology by Celeste. So you can find me. I do a lot on Instagram. I do lives every Sunday and Monday at Astrology by Celeste. Also on YouTube, I have a video about the Gemini full moon. I'm really into the moon being a Cancer rising, so do a lot of teachings about that. And I'm going to be starting my moon mastery classes again in February. So you can go to my website, my newsletter. I send out two newsletters twice a month at the new and the full moon, and other goodies for my subscribers. But yeah, I think I mentioned my background is in corporate. So I give practical, grounded advice to help you use the energies to your highest good. And just like try to enjoy this Gemini full moon, I think is enjoy, reflect, and release would be my advice for this.
I love that. That's how I knew you were an earth sign. I'm like, you are very practical. I knew that there was some Capricorn, Saturn energy in there. And I have to ask, you came from the corporate world. What sector or kind of business were you working in before you decided to go full force into astrology?
Yeah, so I have my degree, my bachelor's in biology and an MBA. So I was in sales, marketing, and business development for Fortune 500 companies for the last 25 plus years. So yeah, I specialized in the life science area and the medical device areas. Yeah.
Wow. And what I know you said that, the shift, the Saturn square Uranus kind of helped push you in a new direction, and the transits helped you gain that insight. But what was that final moment that you were like, okay, I just want to do my own thing and kind of get away from the corporate world?
Well, I knew I wanted to make a change, and I really started with that releasing the corporate with that eclipse to my Venus, the lunar eclipse to my Venus. And on this year's Aries new moon, the day after that, I had Saturn squaring my natal Saturn. Saturn separates. And so I had this insight that now is the time. I have an Aries moon. It's like the only thing that's holding me back is fear. So I made the decision that, and I thought, is this the right time for like a week? So I did it early, and this is what happens in eclipse seasons, because it was right before eclipse seasons. Eclipses bring things into your life faster than you realize that they were going to happen. So that was the final shift. But these energies are an evolution. It's not like one thing happens on one day. It's this, big, like this slow moving, evolving, where you may make the change on one day, but it's been seeded and growing for quite a while. So it was, like that 2.5 year moon cycle that really evolved everything for me.
Don't you love when that happens, when you can kind of look back in hindsight and be like, wow, everything has changed so much. Like even during the last full moon live stream, I was talking with another astrologer, Court Burns, and we were talking all about eclipses, because it was an eclipse for the full moon in Taurus. And I realized at that moment that the eclipse in, I think it was Sagittarius in June, middle of the year,
At
during
Pisces.
Gemini season, was the first. So I used to be a reporter, and it was the first time I ever talked about astrology on air, because they were having me cover an eclipse, and they're like, "Oh, what does it mean for astrology?" So they asked me, and I'm like, "Oh," and just instantly I'm like, well, this is in Sagittarius, and blah, 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 and just kind of like went with it. And everybody was like, wow, I can't believe you know so much. And it just like this light bulb went off, like, oh, people are interested in this. Like, I really enjoy talking about this. I should incorporate this more. And then, the next eclipse, I was already doing this. So beautiful to see how the transits kind of push us in new directions. And I think it's a great note as we head towards this final full moon of 2021, as we have Chiron going direct, Venus going retrograde, this conjunction between Venus and Pluto, this square between Saturn and Uranus. We have this really intense mashup of energies over the next 2 weeks that could push you in a new direction. So be open to it, invite it. Your life could look hugely different in 6 months from now.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Okay, so on that note, let's pull a card. What do we need to know for this Gemini full moon? Ooh, this is a good card. We got the fear card. It says it's a waxing gibbous moon is the card, and it's the fear card. And it's so perfect because today is that waxing gibbous moon. It's showing this woman dressed in black, and she has a bird cage above her, and all of the birds are out of the cage. So let me pull up the little, this is card number 11 too, which I love.
Wow.
Number 11. So here we go. What does it say? Fear. The time for courage is here. Fear is only useful if it teaches you something. You must examine whether your fears are old or new, useful or unhelpful. Fear blocks flow. The mantra here is, I am courageous. So it says, if there is one thing that stops people from fulfilling their dreams or even getting things done that they want done, it's fear. Experiencing fear is built in, a chemical part of the way our brain works to protect us. Emotions such as fear cause the production of a whole raft of body chemicals that give us the best chance of coping with situations that need our attention to survive. There is a healthy kind of fear, the kind that wants us to keep out of dangerous situations or stay clear of someone who instinctively makes us wary. However, it would be a rare person who does not have at least one fear that does not serve them, a fear that is unrealistic or untrue, or perhaps based on an outmoded experience or something that is buried so deeply we only see the symptoms rather than the fear itself. Most fears have been formed with the positive intent of protection. We need to separate that intention out and deal with it in a more resourceful and less destructive way if we are to create ease and flow in our lives. Fear has many names. Covert ones are envy, jealousy, codependence, procrastination, bullying, people-pleasing, disconnection. More overt ones are avoidance, fear of failure, fear of success. There is, however, a kind of antidote to fear, and it is courage. Fear will put up an initial resistance to courage, but it has no real long-term power against it. While we can be fearful and courageous at the same time, and I think courage contains a mighty big dose of fear, we can choose to face that fear and flow through it until we fear less and then eventually become fearless. The process isn't always graceful. It isn't always impressive because it may be slow and deliberate steps we take. Taking these steps isn't always easy, an understatement. It isn't always apparent to others, so it should be about measuring how far we've come and not worrying about what anyone else thinks. Comparison is useless. Courage is powerful, no matter what form it takes. What a perfect card.
It is perfect. What is the name of that deck again?
Queen of the Moon Oracle.
I
By
love
Stacey
that.
DeMarco. Yeah. I've actually gotten this card before and a while ago, and I remember reading it, and it was really profound when I read it the first time. Like, sometimes fear isn't about just being scared of something. It's about those limiting beliefs, holding ourselves back, and this can relate to literally every sign we talked about for the full moon. I mean, everything we talked about with, releasing,
Gemini.
letting go.
Gemini,
Yeah.
a lot of our fears come from our mental processes and now self-limiting beliefs. Gemini, Sagittarius. I love that. The sun
So
is in
perfect.
Sagittarius. The moon is in Gemini.
So perfect. And really, I just think this is that message from source, like whatever fears are coming up for you around the full moon, around the end of the year, this is the time to release them and to lean into that courage, lean into that optimism. And Jupiter will help us do that with the full moon. So whatever is coming up for you, know that fear is not serving you from getting to your highest potential, and that fear is healthy and normal, but got to let go of it if you want to level up in 2022. Well, thank you so much for coming on with me this morning, chatting with me about astrology and providing all of your insights. I love all of the details you're able to pull and the angles and aspects no one else is talking about. And you just have such a beautiful way of looking long-term at astrology too, and patterns that are playing out over time. So I really appreciate your insights.
Thank you, Olivia. It's been a pleasure, and thank you so much for the invite. And I've really enjoyed talking to you and your insights as well.
Oh, well, thank you. I can't wait to keep following and gaining your insight on social media. I put your handle in the comments, but for anyone watching, follow Astrology by Celeste, just how it sounds, and you will not regret it. Celeste always has the best insights on astrology and just that very calm, grounded communication, that Taurus sun that really makes things easy to understand, practical, and very comfortable, very comforting, I will say, with that Cancer rising too.
Oh, thank you. Well, I love your your Virgo precision. This was great.
Yeah, I am precise. I also am very, very chatty. So this Gemini full moon, I'm feeling it. I just want to talk everybody's ear off.
Well, you enjoy this full moon and have a beautiful, beautiful holiday season.
You too. Thank you so much, Celeste, and thank you to everyone who watched with us. I hope that you got prepared to step into the energy of this full moon to release what's no longer serving you at the end of 2021, and we'll be back next week early in the morning for transits today, talking more about that Venus retrograde and all of the energy leading up to Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. So I'll see you back here next week, but until then, stay curious. Thank you so much for joining us and aligning with the energy of the universe today. If you enjoyed this morning's episode of Transits Today, you can join our live astrology discussion every weekday morning right here wherever you're watching. And head to thespiritualjournalist.com to read your daily astrology forecast and browse the Spiritual Shop. The most fun way to help keep these forecasts free and support more content like this is to buy yourself a little something on our website. But if you're feeling extra generous, you can also buy me a coffee to fuel future live streams. Just tap the link in the description or head to buymeacoffee.com and search The Spiritual Journalist. And speaking of, you can also tune in to The Spiritual Journalist, our weekly live interview where we ask our guests questions about everything from crystals and manifestation to mental health and the environment. Those conversations stream live right here wherever you're watching now every Tuesday. I'm so grateful you found us here, and I can't wait for our next conversation.